all these people that are just brought in, and you don't have enough time with them. Like, I would say the biggest waste this movie had for me was it was a complete waste of Winston Duke as M'Baku.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, he is my favorite character in both of these movies. Like, I love Winston Duke in this movie. I loved him in the original Black Panther. I thought he was a good foil that honestly is not really a foil to Chadwick Boseman, but he was at the beginning of it kind of that way. And then in this one, he's clearly not a complete dick, but he's funny. He's the comic relief. He's there to kind of not make it as serious and dark as it is. And it completely wastes him.
Oh, goody, goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Contage, my fellow co-host and filmmaker, John Woolscroft.
Wait, what the fuck is a Marvel movie? What does that mean?
What the fuck is a Marvel movie? You mean it's one of those things? Look, we should not even just call them Marvel movies anymore. We should just call them what they are. Just the film industry / movies.
Yeah.
Whenever you're talking about a movie now, just imagine it's a Marvel film.
Yeah. It's any movie that's not done by Jordan Peele, Quentin Tarantino, or Christopher Nolan. Other than that, it's a Marvel movie.
Yeah. But we're on episode 257, and to kind of follow up our descent into vulgarities on last episode of Zombie Holocaust / Dr. Butcher MD, fun episode, by the way. Check it out, or check our back catalog. We thought that since it's been a while since we've done a Marvel film, I think we did what, Doctor Strange?
Yes, because we did not.
We did
There's
not
so many
do
of them.
Thor,
Love and Cancer. Yeah.
Love and Cancer.
Love and Chemo, I think.
Oh, it's horrible. Horrible on so many levels. But yeah, we didn't do Thor, Love and Cancer. And we kind of skipped that one. So we figured, this movie's now out on Disney Plus as of yesterday. Yesterday. We're recording this on the 2nd. So we figured to kind of ride the SEO wave that is going to be coming for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, that we do a stab at that, right?
Yeah.
Every once in a while we do these where we try to remain relevant, not just pull bad movies out of our asses. So
those can be very fun.
Those are always fun. They're not fun going in, but they are fun coming out.
Oh, kind of like Kale.
Yeah, kind of like Kale. So yeah, now here's the thing. I didn't see this in theaters. John, did you see this in theaters?
Yeah.
Okay. So you got the whole firsthand experience thing. I saw this quite literally last night because I don't know, for some reason, I saw the trailer for this one and I'm just like, I'm gonna skip it. My kids saw it though. My stepsons, they saw it and they found it to be boring. Yeah.
I mean, the film has a lot of focus on grief and colonialism, and
and we're gonna get to all that.
It's kind of like, when do they get to the fireworks factory?
well, that's the thing is this movie, I would say this might be one of the darkest Marvel films to come out. Marvel has a tendency to kind of they hint at real human emotions every once in a while, but it's always wrapped around in a kind of fantastical type packaging, right? I'll give you an example. Like Iron Man 2, you have a lot of funny moments in that movie, but you're also dealing with someone who is self-destructive because they think they're dying. Tony Stark thinks he's dying. So he says, fuck it. I'm going to, drink and party and who gives a fuck? I don't care. And you also have moments where you're dealing with like your dad's legacy at that too, because he realizes his dad's not a complete asshole. So like there's moments of maturity, but I don't think that there's ever been a movie from Marvel that's been like beginning to middle to end, really trying to be a mature display of what is arguably probably one of the hardest emotions that people have to deal with, and that is loss and grief.
I think that you might also be grading on a curve because like,
Am I?
I mean, every one of these Marvel movies they've just gotten more and more jokey and haha and goofy to the point where it almost seems like they're almost parodies of themselves.
Yeah.
Like, did you see Thor: Cancer and Kiddos?
I did.
Okay. Yeah, that, I mean, everything that I didn't like about Ragnarok was amped up 10,000 in that. I'm like, this is, how am I supposed to take anything seriously? Everything's like as a joke or a throwaway gag. This doesn't, and then also, but she has cancer at the same time, and it's like, ha 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 ha, cancer in this comedy movie, yay! Like, it's just I mean, people complain that DC's way too uber serious with all this stuff. Yeah, but Marvel, you're also just way too cavalier and nonsense with your stuff. So I think just the fact that this movie, I don't know, took itself seriously made it seem like, oh, this movie's intense,
Well, I didn't think it was intense. That's not the word I would use. I would just say mature. It's a mature film, and it is very different than the first Black Panther. So I think the reason why Black Panther worked well and why it was so big was mainly because of the fact that Chadwick Boseman really brought life to that character. It talked about issues dealing with the legacy of the sons dealing with the legacy of a father, that maybe, you have an idealized version of them and you think they're good and everything like that. But we realize that people are not black and white. They are shades of gray. And quite honestly, good people can sometimes do bad things. And that, along with the power struggle between Killmonger and King T'Challa, really made that movie what it is. There are a lot of people, myself included, who were kind of like, I don't know if Killmonger is in the wrong.
Yeah, not completely.
Right.
It's kind of like Magneto, It's you kind of get where he's coming from, but then he's like, but I'm just going to kill everybody. It's like, that's not really the answer,
like
Magneto.
I don't know if that's really the answer, but it's like, I understand where you're coming from. I think there are better ways of dealing with it. I don't think you should. I don't think that anyone could take the anger away from them. I don't think you can tell anyone like you have no right to be angry. No, I think that people do. But it felt to me like a little bit of that was kind of missing from this one, And plus, I don't think that movie was as serious as this one is.
Yeah, but it's just, I also compare these movies to each other, and it doesn't feel like either of the Black Panther movies fit in this universe, especially with every one of these movies getting goofier and goofier. And then you get like these movies, which are like heavy on subtext and text in general, and just like things that they want to say. And
no lasers in the sky.
Yeah, no lasers. I mean, like, how is Thor: Love and Thunder and this movie in the same universe? How are these two the same thing? It's like saying Ace Ventura and Schindler's List are is the same universe. Like,
that's horrible. But you're right. I mean, there's it's something where it's I think it's been very difficult with this, especially this phase. What is it now? Phase 5, 4 or 5. Yeah. Phase 4. I think this phase has been probably the most uneven phase of the MCU. Like, it is, and it makes sense, right? The entire first 3, you had literally a Bible of this is how things are going to go. This is where we're going to hit to. And it's like, this one's like, we don't fucking know.
And then they got to Mad Grimace, and now
Mad Grimace.
Yeah, and now they don't really know what they're doing, but
yeah,
because it seems like they've had a lot of clunkers than they usually have. And like, even if the movies weren't that great, if they were just assembly line products, like people were like, well, I like the taste of that Cheese Whiz, just keep giving me more of that Cheese Whiz. But now it's just people are like, I don't know, it's kind of wearing off. Like, I didn't really like Eternals, and I never read a Shang-Chi comic, and
I don't know anyone who liked Eternals. Like, I've yet to find anyone who's like, oh my God, I can't wait for another Eternals movie because I got to see whether Icarus is alive or dead.
Well, a big problem is that a lot of their main characters, like their contracts, like went up.
Yeah.
Like, there's no Iron Man now, there's no Captain America now, there's no Black Widow. So it's like, okay, well, if we got these side characters, and it's ridiculous to say Spider-Man is a side character, but he was introduced late into this world. It's like, we need a gimmick. What if we brought in the other Spider-Man? And then Doctor Strange, like, oh, what if Charles Xavier is there? Because of different quantum realms and dimensions. Because I don't know anybody that's overly excited about Ant-Man and like the quantum guts or whatever.
Quantum Mania.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people are excited for Kang. I don't know if they're excited for Ant-Man, but I think people who've been following the Disney Plus series, which I would say the one positive thing that Phase 4 has brought us has been Disney Plus series that have actually been really good. And I'd almost would say they've replaced a little bit of what the movies should have been doing, with like Loki and WandaVision, and well,
WandaVision dropped the ball. It pooped its pants.
WandaVision pooped its pants.
And I really do think that show is just a litmus test to see how much they could fuck with the audience and that they would just come back for more.
I still liked it though.
It's like, it's the guy who played, Quicksilver from like the Fox version of the movies. And it's like, no, it's not him. And it's just some guy named Boner. And I think the executives sat back and said, let's see if these idiots just keep coming back for more abuse.
I guess that's one way of looking at it.
Not only is it, they hired the guy who plays Quicksilver in the other movies. Not only is he not that, but he's a guy named Boner. I'm surprised his name isn't Fuck You, Mick Audience.
I mean, they should have just gone with that, The episode of WandaVision is rated M.
For one line, yeah.
For one line.
Yeah.
Now but here's the thing, like, I really liked Moon Knight. I know not a lot of other people did. I liked it.
Oh, there's so many shows. Like, how do you keep up with all these damn shows?
Because I have children, man. Like,
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen Hawkeye. I saw Loki about, I think, 6-7 months after everyone else.
Loki was great. I liked Loki.
I could not stand the cinematography. I could not stand how everything looked like a brownout. That drove me insane. I know what they were trying to do, but I'm like, can they just step outside for a second just to like?
You mean you didn't like the 1980s sepia all over everything?
Again, I know what they were trying for. I thought Winter Soldier and the arm guy,
You're really just like, I'm done with these fuckers. I'm so done.
But that show I thought had potential, and I think they were too cowardice because they're Disney to like really actually say anything.
Well, let's be honest here. The MCU is probably the most sterile of franchises. Like, it was news that the Eternals were going to have a sex scene in it. Do you remember that?
I think other than a couple of the shows, like I haven't seen Hawkeye or Moon Knight or whatever. The only movie I haven't seen still is Eternals, because every single person I've talked to goes, you don't have to see it.
You don't have to see it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you this as a friend. Don't see it. You don't need to. It's like, I was telling someone the other day because we were talking about Indiana Jones, and I was like, yeah, you know what? You can just skip Crystal Skull. You don't need to watch it. It's not important. You're not missing anything. And it's the same thing with Eternals. The Eternals is just boring. It's boring and bad. And I, honestly, I came out of that movie basically going like, oh, the MCU is fucked. Like, it's just done. If this is what you've got, you're just roll over and call it quits.
Well, they've exhausted a lot of the initial characters. I remember when Marvel was nearly bankrupt and they started throwing out all their characters to see which studio wanted who. It was the big bidding war over Hulk and Spider-Man and the X-Men. Nobody was like, I got to get those Eternals rights.
Yeah. Yeah, no one really wanted them.
Yeah.
Now, coming back to Black Panther, because we could talk about Marvel all the live long day. But I do want to talk about this one. So I don't want to go point by point on this because, one, the movie is on Disney Plus. You can watch it right now. And I understand that we might be hitting spoilery territory. But as we mentioned at the top of the show, this movie is very mature. And it really focuses on what I would say are loss, grief, and how do we as people process that. Would you agree with that, John?
I would, but I'm not even sure the movie gave us a moment to process it because we're thrown into they're trying to find a cure for Black Panther, and then off screen he dies in the first 5 minutes, and it's just whoa, okay. And I got a hot take here.
Hot take.
I know nobody's gonna like this, but they should have just recast Black Panther.
No, I'm sorry.
I know the actor died, but the character doesn't need to die.
Technically, and this is a spoiler, so fast forward about 5 seconds from here. Technically, he is recast if you watch the end of the movie.
Oh, is this the end credit cut?
Yes.
I didn't stick around for that.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, fine. This is, again, I warned spoilers before. Okay. So this is a spoiler. So if you want the character of T'Challa to be recast, congratulations, John. You got your wish. Because if you stick around to the end of the movie, you find out, again, spoilers, that Lupita Nyong'o's character, who was, Black Panther's, lover, partner, that sort of thing, that she disappeared for 6 years and had a kid, and that's T'Challa's son. And guess what they named him? T'Challa.
Yeah.
So, congratulations, John. You got your fucking wish.
I don't see that as recasting. I see that as replacing.
Here's the
it
way
would be like if Pepper Potts went if Robert Downey Jr. had OD'd, it's like, boy, sure is sad Iron Man died, but I'm sure glad I gave birth to his son, Tony Jr.
Well, here's the thing. That's
little baby with a little thing in his chest,
Oh God. You just ripped out his heart and just said, yeah, he needs to be like his dad.
He's got that beard,
why does he already have facial hair? It's like, well, he takes off for his daddy.
Yeah.
But at 6 months?
Yeah.
No, but here's the thing. This is a backdoor way of recasting. That is it. It's a backdoor way because in the universe now you could say there's always a T'Challa. It's his son. So that's how they got around it. And they saved it for the end because I'm sure the neckbeards like us were saying the same thing. It's not really Black Panther.
Yeah. And I have no emotional attachment. I never read a Black Panther
Neither did
comic. I mean, I knew that there was a character, but I never picked up a comic Black Panther in my life. So I had no emotional stakes in it. I'm just thinking that when you want to do 7 pictures with the actor you hired because you have a plan of okay, we want this many Black Panther movies with the T'Challa character, and I know the actor dies, it's like, oh fuck, but you might need to recast it because as good as Chadwick is, it's the costume that's the character.
Well, here's the thing, and I think this was probably the problem. I think it was the fact that Chadwick passed away from cancer, and he was not open with it. No one knew about it, and no one knew he was sick. And I think it's that kind of leads to it. And I think it is being respectful of the family and saying, in this universe, Chadwick is the Black Panther. That's him. He brought that character. He fleshed that character out. So it's out of respect to retain that. I get that. I understand that. Having the son come in, honestly, I felt that was stupid. To be perfectly honest with you, I felt that was not necessary. I don't think you needed that because it kind of undercuts the whole movie. Because the whole time through this movie, and again, we're not going to go plot point by plot point, but the whole time of this movie, you have Shuri, who's basically become the main focus of this. She's feeling guilt over the death of her brother, and she is angry at the world. She's angry she doesn't have her brother. She is angry she doesn't have her father. She's angry that she is put in this position. And the whole arc of the movie is her dealing with that anger and that grief and that loss and becoming the Black Panther. So when you trout out, T'Challa's son and say, aha, his name is T'Challa too. And we're all sitting in the theater, or me sitting on my couch and watching the stream and going like, well, so much for Shuri as Black Panther, because now apparently the heir apparent's here. You know what I mean? It just kind of undercuts that part of the story.
It's a difficult thing to deal with too, because she was always written as a supporting character.
Yes.
And I know that it's like the suit and it's like the power you get from
heart-shaped herb.
Right. But at the same time, it's hard to believe that this girl who's like 4'11" and maybe 97 pounds is like gonna kick ass. Like,
I don't think it's hard to believe.
Like, what if like Juggernaut showed up? She's just gonna whip his ass.
No, I don't think it's hard to believe. In the universe, it makes it sets it up. My whole point is just you spent 2.5 hours trying to build up Shuri and trying to basically give her the mantle of Black Panther. And then over the course of, say, 30 seconds at the end credit scene, you've basically cut that out. Like, because we're all going to be going like, oh, well, yes, this new T'Challa is going to become the Black Panther eventually. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I feel just kind of hurts the film. I don't think you needed that. I think a better thing would have just had her burn her funeral clothes, and that's it. Movie done. Don't need it. It hurts her story. And this movie more or less is about these different characters, these side characters that we kind of had in the first movie. It's how are they dealing with the loss? And it makes sense because I think from a standpoint, the MCU as a whole, and I'm not talking about the characters, I'm talking about the people who are actually making these movies, how are they dealing with the loss of a friend? Someone who helped them make the movies. Right?
Yeah.
That's, I think, part of it too. And it comes out in the film. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. I don't understand why the Denaya, I can't remember her character's name in it, but why she, who is a warrior in the movie, why she didn't become the new Black Panther.
Oh, Okoye.
I mean, I know why, because they had to sell other toys.
Well, Okoye's character, I think they really they kind of shortchanged her, because there's a moment in the movie where the queen of Wakanda, Queen Ramona, basically like strips her of her being a general, and is just kind of says, "Well, fuck you. Your whole identity is now taken apart."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, then she gets a new identity in as one of these Midnight Sisters. I think that's what they were called, like the armored suit things that she wears, which I got a problem with some of the armored suits. I'm going to get to that, but yeah, like they kind of just shortchanged her character and said, well, you're just going to be an Iron Man-esque character now. Have fun.
Well, I mean, let's not forget the college student Iron Man as well.
Oh yes, Riri Williams.
Yeah,
who they kind of just threw in here for reasons.
Well, they're making a Disney Plus show.
Oh, yes. Well, we have to introduce the Disney Plus. Yeah, I felt that Riri's character was okay, but they didn't give enough time to explore her at all. Like, they were just like, well, here's his character. She designed a thing that is causing all the problems, and we need to spend half an hour, 45 minutes with that storyline. And yeah, she's going to build an Iron Man suit because we have to have a Disney Plus series.
And there is a lot in this movie of just unnecessary things because they have to connect it with the other universe or other things in the universe. Like Julie Louis Dreyfus, easy for me to say.
Oh,
and
Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Her entire involvement in this, she does not progress the plot whatsoever, but I'm sure whatever she was doing is going to play a part in a Disney Plus show or the next movie.
It's the Thunderbolts. That's what she's part of. But yes.
And it's just like, wow. When you're just servicing the next projects, when you're sacrificing your plot for that, like that's...
Well, do you remember back when we talked about Age of Ultron, that was one of my problems with it?
Oh, yeah.
That it quite literally felt like a checklist of, we need to do these things so that we can get to the next movie. We need to have Thor go into a water bath and have a lightning orgasm for reasons. Because we need to show the Infinity Stones. And we need to, all that. Like, that's kind of, I can see that being the case in this film. I don't think it's as in your face as Age of Ultron was. But I do think that it does suffer a little bit of that checklist ethic, basically, right? Like, we need to show these things. But getting back to Julie Louis-Dreyfus' character, I felt her and Everett Ross were completely useless in this movie.
Yeah.
Completely unnecessary. They weren't needed. And that's the one thing I would say about this film as a whole. There are a lot of characters that are being brought in to try to fill the hole that Chadwick Boseman left. And it leads to a very bloated movie.
Yeah, I think that's more than... Because what is the runtime of this movie?
I actually was kind of curious myself when I was watching it. Because I swear to God, I must have paused it at least twice. Because I was like, Jesus Christ, why is this thing fucking so long?
2 hours and 41 minutes.
Wow.
And for a comic book movie, no matter how serious it takes itself, unless it's Batman, I don't think it should be 2 hours and 41 minutes.
Well, even the Batman was like, what, 2 hours?
Oh, no, that movie was near 3 hours.
The Batman was, well.
Yeah, and I think The Dark Knight was like 2.5 around there. So, yeah, I don't know why, but I let Batman get away with it.
Batman can get away with murder. I mean, not the character. I mean, he could, but I'm just saying, like,
if Tim Burton's directing it, he can get away with murder.
Yeah. But I really felt that it was just, I mean, here's the problem with that, though, and this just goes to show you. If you've got 2 hours and 40 some odd minutes and you've got that many characters, there's no way you're spending enough time on them. Because you've got Riri, you've got Okoye, you've got Ramona, you've got Namor, you've got Killmonger, you've got Shuri, you've got all of these people that are just brought in, and you don't have enough time with them. Like, I would say the biggest waste this movie had, for me, was it was a complete waste of Winston Duke as M'Baku.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, he is my favorite character in both of these movies. Like, I love Winston Duke in this movie. I loved him in the original Black Panther. I thought he was a good, like, foil that honestly is not really a foil to Chadwick Boseman, but he was like, at the beginning of it kind of that way. And then in this one, he's clearly not a complete dick, but he's funny. He's the comic relief. He's there to kind of not make it as serious and dark as it is. And it completely wastes him.
Well, it's a hard thing too. Like, when we barely met any of these characters, like, I look at Endgame and how, Hawkeye is like, we see his family dust at the beginning, and then like he's like an assassin for hire, and like that's all that I really remember from his involvement in that. I mean,
that's really all
you could argue like, well, it's Hawkeye, who cares? But at the same time, I don't really need him to have a huge arc in the movie because I've already seen Hawkeye like 100 times. It's
Right.
okay if he's in the background because I know this character already. But, it's the Winston Duke character. Like you mentioned the actor. I couldn't tell you the name of the character. I could not recall, but like I've only seen him in one other movie. So when you're juggling this many plates and we don't know these characters yet, it's hard for us to have anybody resonate if we haven't had time to spend with them.
Here's how I know that he is a character that should have been explored more. I can quote his lines from the movie. Like the best line in the whole movie, "We killed the fish man." Like, it's hilarious. But I can tell you, out of the whole film, 2 hours and 40 some odd minutes, I remember that line.
Yeah.
And that tells you something right there. That character should have been used more. We should have had more of him. I really think that. I think that would have, helped. Because this movie has had some people say that's too dark, it's too long, it's too, sad. And I think there is something to having a little bit of levity in there. And that character really is designed for that. And you have a moment in the film where, M'Baku is talking to Shuri and trying to kind of communicate that, hey, this isn't what your mother wanted you to do. She didn't want you to go down this very dark path of vengeance, basically. And it's a great scene, but I keep going back to like, why are we not getting more of that? Why are we not exploring this character a bit more rather than packing it full of Riri Williams, Valentina Allegra, Dave Fontaine, Everett Ross, things that we don't fucking need.
Well, and I mean, what vengeance? The issue is that if you have Black Panther die of an unnamed illness off camera, like there's nothing to avenge. It was,
Well, she's angry at the world.
Right.
And you also have to understand, she's angry at the world because of this. She's already in a dark place to begin with. They begin the movie. And then on top of that, her mother is murdered by Namor. Okay. So that's the vengeance she wants to go after. That's why, she decides that she's going to become Black Panther. It's not to become Black Panther. It's to kill Namor. And that's ultimately the reason why when she goes to the realm of the ancestors, that she sees Killmonger rather than anybody else.
It's like when Luke saw Darth Vader in the cave because he brought his fear with him.
Yeah. Well, she brought her anger and her rage because she hadn't dealt with the loss and grief. And I also think because she's trying to be pulled between two distinct personalities, right? Like her brother was very noble, was a good person. And you could make the argument that those kind of idealistic traits kind of led to the situation that you're in at the beginning of this movie, right? Because you decided to open up Wakanda to everybody. Now everyone is power hungry for the natural resources that Wakanda has. Yeah, which then led to Namor, which then led to her mother being murdered.
Yeah, I apologize for that pause because I'm trying to think of, I know what the movie's trying to say in terms of like, all these different groups and countries and military subsections of just trying to steal the vibranium for themselves. Yeah. But like, aren't there like war crimes happening all over the place on both sides? Like,
yeah, I mean, there are. I think what the movie is trying to say is ultimately that you could swap out vibranium for anything. It could be oil, food, water, just power, any natural resource that people can exploit. That's what this is. Now, I think it's also worth mentioning, and it's not at all brought up in this movie, but we're still maybe 2 years removed from the blip, right? Like the countries are still fucked up. And that's not at all mentioned in this.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they don't care. You look at what happened over the holiday season with Southwest Airlines.
Oh yeah.
And how like one computer system could just destroy the travel plans and holidays for, you know, thousands of people.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if 4 billion human beings just came back overnight? I mean, that is
After 5 years.
Yeah, that is the biggest upheaval of anything that I could ever imagine. And these films just gloss over it. I almost left the theater when Spider-Man Far From Home, which was the first one after, you know, the blip was reversed, and the kid's like doing the announcements at Peter Parker's high school. And he's like, my younger brother's older than me now. It's like, this is hilarious. It's like 9/11 times a billion, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that none of these movies, and that's really the problem here. It's that none of these movies have really addressed the after effects of that. None of them have. You could say that you know, Falcon and Winter Soldier did.
They tried
to some degree. They tried.
They dropped the ball.
But they dropped the ball, and nothing else has really tried to pick that up. Everything has been, let's talk about the multiverse. Let's talk about Kang. Let's talk about all this other shit. It's like, but you still have a world that is quite literally been ripped apart, left to fester for 5 years, and then smash back together again. But what does that equal to? What are the problems that you now have to face? And I think that if this movie, since it is trying to kind of throw the analogy of exploitation of resources that leads into horrible acts of violence against people, if you're trying to push into that, why not spend a little bit more time showing us that in the world as a whole? Like they do a little bit, but they don't.
Because, Brian, they have to go to a college and meet a 19-year-old super
I didn't need
genius who is like Albert Einstein and like Steve Jobs and every other person combined into one at 19. Because we need to get the next Disney Plus show off. You know, like
we need to have a replacement for Iron Man. That's what this is.
Yeah. And do you know what the biggest thing that bothered me in this movie was? When they're running from the police after they meet this young lady. They're running from the police, and like they involuntarily murder like 12 police officers, and it is
voluntarily murder,
and it's brushed off like nothing.
Oh, well, those were disposable police officers, John. You know that.
I'm like, they just committed third-degree manslaughter.
Yes, they did.
And whatever, I guess.
Well, you know what it is? Diplomatic immunity.
Yeah. Lethal Weapon 2, baby.
Diplomatic immunity. But no, I mean, you're right. Like and everything's brushed off. It's like, oh, we took care of that. Like at the end of the movie when Riri's going back to her home, and you know, she's like, oh, am I gonna have to deal with police? It's like, no, we took care of that. It's like, so how did you take care of that?
Yeah. And it's, you know, and
did you pay them off?
It reminds me of like Anchorman, like when he's like, yeah, that's right, Brick killed somebody. By the way, you might want to lay low for a while, buddy. You're probably wanted for murder. Like, and that never comes up again. But you know why? Because it's fucking Anchorman. It's a stupid, outrageous comedy. You're not supposed to like think that hard about what happens in that universe. In this, you do.
Yeah. No, that now that you bring it up, yeah, that is really, really stupid. I want to talk a little bit about Namor and his character. First of all, I didn't know anything about Namor before the movie.
Say no more, baby.
No, yes, no more, because no love for him. Which okay, sure. I like his character. I like the fact that he is someone who is basically a mirror for Shuri. Right? This is someone who's been around since like the 1500s, has seen the world basically middle finger everybody, and he's just had a fuck enough of it. So I like his character. I like that he cares about his people. I just kind of like Killmonger. He's kind of taking that anger and going the wrong direction with it because he wants to, like, attack the surface world.
Yeah, like take them out before they can take us out. Like it's a very interesting conversation on like imperialism.
Yeah.
But I'm distracted by his little wings and his massive groin. It was distracting. I'm like, is that Fassbender?
Is that you really were? Well, they would digitally alter that shit, right?
Oh yeah.
Like that you wouldn't get the luxury of seeing that.
Here's an unspeakable side note, but it's a fun sidebar here. In Terminator 2, when Robert Patrick was completely naked at the beginning of that movie, when he takes out the cop and he loads the gun, when he bent over like that, his ball bag like came below his leg, and so they had to digitally erase out his balls frame by frame. And I just wonder if some guy's like, hey, I was one of the digital artists on Terminator 2. It's like, did you do the cool effect where the head split open and came back? It's like, no, I erased Robert Patrick's balls.
Oh, that some intern at ILM was tasked with that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
erase those balls.
Okay, sir, I got the coffee for you. What do you need me to do now? Okay, so we got this scene where Robert Patrick's balls are showing. I need you to go on the computer and erase them frame by frame.
Yeah, it was rather warm that day, so hanging low.
Yeah. There's a lot of changes in light in that texture, sir. Yeah, I know it's a testicle. But yeah, I don't know how do I get back from that, man? Like you can't sidebar me that way. Getting back to Wakanda Forever and Namor and his apparently, massive testicles. I wasn't paying attention to that. The wing shit I thought was fun. Kind of a weak.
It's like
weak
he was
power
an extra
there.
on Ferngully. I don't know.
Yeah. He did kind of have that sort of vibe, and the way that they like depower him with basically like choking him out through his skin. I thought that was kind of bizarre. Like you had to trap him and then like basically dry him out.
Well, and then hit him. Spoiler alerts, I guess. They hit him with a giant fireball that kill him.
I saw that. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, man! Like, Shuri just gives no fucks at this point.
Well, Shuri also has a open wound that fire just ripped through.
Oh, well, let's be honest here. I saw that part where she gets stabbed and then just jumps right off the spear, right? And I guess we're supposed to believe that because she had the heart-shaped herb in her system that she can heal. Was that ever established?
I think just like a lot of the other Marvel characters, it's the powers are whatever we need them to be.
So it's like that episode of South Park where Cartman says that Balrog has many powers, all powers.
I have the power of invisibility. You have that power too?
Balrog has many powers. Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, wait a minute. At what point did we establish that the Black Panther can get stabbed through the belly with a fucking spear and just pull it right off, heal up, and be good to go?
And shoot fire through her. The wound. Yeah.
And shoot fire through the wound.
Which would then send fire through her entire body.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't think it necessarily went through her body. I think it went through because there was that spaceship. And remember, if you do the Wakanda Forever thing, it causes the thing to explode. So I think that's what it was. I don't think it necessarily came out through her body.
And I'm not sure the message of like, well, I'm not going to like kill you because that's not who I am. Like, but you can go now. And then he's like, oh, okay, peace. And then at the end of the movie, he's like, don't worry, we'll, because like his followers, the bad guy, like his followers are like, don't worry, we'll kill them someday because they stupidly let me go. It's like, yeah. That would have been like at the end of like World War II if we just went, oh, Nazis. You silly Billy,
rapscallions.
You don't. Now we're gonna let you go, but you got to stop being Nazis. And they go, I believe in okay,
and they'd never stop being Nazis.
Yeah, they would just go back to being Nazis.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it. I understood why they did it, because there's no way that Shuri is going to be Black Panther and kill Namor. It just wasn't going to happen. Maim him, sure. Light him on fire, sure. But kill him, no. And again, like, her arc in this film, and I really think that they could like stop Black Panther movies at this point if they wanted to. Her arc in this film is really just to like deal with her grief. She's angry at the world, angry at Namor, wanting vengeance, and decides that's not worth it. Kind of like Batman v Superman, right? Like, Batman, he wanted to kill Superman, but then once he got the Martha thing said to him, he's like, well, I can't kill you now. We're buddies. And that's kind of what happens.
You know, it's funny because I was going to mention a different Batman movie, but just to acknowledge what you said there. But the problem is that like Superman was not actually a villain. Like,
in Batman's mind, he was.
right, but he hadn't actually. I mean, this guy had like murdered innocent people and
murdered her mother.
And murdered her mother, especially, yeah. And so it's like that's a little bit different than Superman. Like, I think that this film actually reminds me bizarrely of Batman Forever, and follow me here.
Oh, okay.
And not just the connection of like Robin and choosing not to kill Two-Face, but even on a bigger scale, I think that, Brian, if I clonked you on the head and I said, do you remember everything from that before that? And you went, I don't remember two things. Why you clonked me on the head. And I also don't remember the plot of Batman Forever. At first I would say that's amazing. You remember the title, but not the plot. But then I would break it down into like the bigger, like, messages that they were trying to convey in that movie. And you'd probably go, that sounds pretty good.
Yes.
And then I'd be like, oh, and then I have to road you. I'd be like, oh no, they fucking botched it the entire time. And I don't think that that's fair for this movie, but I think that this movie had so many points it wanted to make.
Yeah.
But I just don't think they landed any of them in a way that they could. There were so many times in this movie I went, oh wow, this movie's actually pretty deep. This movie's actually really thoughtful. And then they just didn't hit the landing on all of the messaging they were trying to do.
I don't think they hit the landing on all of them, but I think they hit the landing on dealing with loss and grief.
Yeah.
I think those
that's
primary themes, which if you had to take this movie and say, okay, tell me what is Black Panther Wakanda Forever about? I'm going to tell you, it's about dealing with loss and grief. How do people deal with it? That's what the movie's about. In that regard, it is successful. You have a character in Shuri who is completely devastated by loss and grief repeatedly through this movie. And she comes out of it on the other end changed. So yes, in that regard, it does work. But I totally agree with you. There's points on the whole analogy of vibranium being an analogy for oil and food and all that stuff. You've got also duty to your people and socioeconomic issues with different countries. There's a lot in this movie, and there's no fucking way that this movie could land it on all of them at all. You know, and that's why I've said, I'm like, this movie there's too much going on. And it's almost like you could have pared this thing down to, like, I don't know, 2 hours, removed Riri Williams entirely, removed Everett Ross, removed Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, and just focused on Shuri and Namor, and that would have been it. That would have been fine.
Yeah, but they're not going to do that because
they're not going to do that.
Money.
No, it's yeah. But I'm just saying, like, your point is there's too many themes in here to hit all of them and land all of them and do it well. And you're right. But here's the prescription on how to fix that. You know, like, this is how you fix that sort of thing. Because the way I look at it is that for every scene that we got a Riri Williams scene in, you know, for every scene that we had, you know, exposition from Everett Ross that wasn't really necessary, you could have expanded upon Winston Duke's character in trying to help Shuri overcome grief and overcome loss. Like, that's the way I look at it. It's like, that would have really helped this movie out, because that's what his character is supposed to be. You know?
Yeah.
But no, I like this movie. I think I like this movie out of all four, the Phase 4 films. This one probably ranks in my, top, 3. I really love Spider-Man, Far From Home, for obvious reasons. And
yeah.
I have no scruples about it. I love the fact that I cut all 3 Spider-Man in one movie. That's my number 1 of this whole phase. I really liked elements of Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. I love the fact it was Sam Raimi. It was a Sam Raimi movie, basically, and basically Evil Dead in superhero form.
That's the only thing that I really loved about that movie.
It's Evil Dead in superhero form, man. Like,
yeah,
they
let Sam Raimi be Sam Raimi.
Yeah, and I would say this one, in no particular order. The other ones, Shang-Chi, Aquafina was funny. That was about it. I like Aquafina.
She should have got knocked out like Malcolm in Jurassic
Park.
Oh,
come on.
Well, we all liked Malcolm, right? But he was great because we got him in small doses. There was a big part of the movie where he just wasn't there, so that we could appreciate him again. So she should have been knocked on the head, and it's like, don't worry, she's gonna sleep through the second act. So
I like Aquafina. I think she's great.
I like her too, but I thought her character was a little much. But
no, not if you see her show. Have you ever watch her show on HBO?
Max? No, I've seen some of the movies she's been in.
It's really good. You gotta check it out. But anyway, like Shang-Chi was kind of meh. All right. Thor: Love and Cancer. There were elements of it I liked, but all in all, not that great.
Well, don't forget the Eternals. I think Eternals started this phase.
Yeah. Well, fuck that movie. Waste of money, right there. There very rarely have been times that I've gone into a theater and just been like, that was a complete waste of my money. That experience of going to see the Eternals was a complete waste of money. Here's a funny story about the Eternals. Okay. So I went and saw that movie with my stepson and my daughter, who at the time I think Coraline was maybe about 3. Yeah, about 3. And she still to this day says to me, that Eternals movie was really bad, Daddy. It was really boring. And it's the only movie that she's actually cried in the theater at. So congratulations, Eternals. You made my daughter cry.
That should be on the poster. You made my daughter cry.
That's yeah. I was gonna say that's a testimonial.
Yeah.
This movie made my daughter cry. Fuck you, Marvel.
And not just because Angelina Jolie is starting to look a little bit like the Crypt Keeper.
No, she's not. No, she's not. Listen, I'm not gonna shame Angelina Jolie. She looks good. I'm gonna shame the movie itself for doing ridiculous things and having a ridiculous plot that makes literally no sense. And I mean, I still go back to the fact that there is a celestial that is in ice in the middle of the fucking ocean that no one has talked about.
I'll take your word for it. Again, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Spoilers for you, John.
Okay.
In the movie, the bad guys are the Celestials because, they have to be. They're these giants. One is birthed out of the earth, and the Eternals stop it, causing a giant Celestial to quite literally be in the middle of the fucking ocean, frozen. And no series, no movie since then has mentioned it at all.
Okay.
There's a quite literal giant being frozen in the ocean that no one's talked about.
Well, I actually I have a note here from one of the executives at Disney. Here, let me open this up. They said, "Hey, shut up and just deal with it, ass fuck." Boner. P.S. Boner.
P.S. Remember we said boner?
Yeah. Enjoy our cotton candy that we call movies, you idiot. And go and come to Disney World. We revamped Splash Mountain to make it less racist.
Yeah. Well, final thoughts on Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, John.
It was not exactly what I thought it was going to be, but I'm not disappointed in any Marvel movie that's part of the Marvel extended universe. Yeah, cinematic universe. The way I was, like, say, some of the X-Men or Spider-Man movies before they were bought up by Marvel and everything. Because I don't really expect anything. Here's what I expect going into every one of these movies. I expect to be intellectually insulted but entertained. And this movie, I do not think that I was intellectually insulted, but for all of it, the points that it missed out on, I'm like, well, it's a Marvel movie, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I think it's a bad thing, where I'm like, I don't expect a whole lot.
So your bar is already pretty low.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I see all these movies, and not just because we usually review all them for the show, but I check them out anyways, and I'm usually at least entertained.
Right.
But I'm like, I can't say that really any of these movies have been good films. They've been entertaining films, but not good. So, I mean, I do wish that they had hit some of these notes a little bit better for what they were going for the messaging that they were going for. But I can't say I was disappointed when they didn't hit the landing, because, well, that's business as usual for Marvel.
Yeah. Good points. Good points as always, John. For me, I felt that it was a good send off and a good movie. I'm just addressing the fact that someone who really breathed life into this character has passed away. And, we see a lot of times with movies, especially franchises, that there's a lot of ways to handle the death off screen of an actor. You could recast them. You could say, fuck the movie, we're done. You could do a lot of things. I think this was probably the most respectful way of basically continuing this story of this character in a way that respects Chadwick Boseman. I really felt that. I think if they did CGI, you'd have enough people who'd be complaining about, well, it's kind of weird to CGI Chadwick Boseman's face on somebody else, kind of like the Paul Walker shit.
Yeah.
Right. And honestly, that has outshined that movie. It's no longer viewed as like, oh, yay, they really like tried to celebrate Paul Walker. It's like, no, isn't it fucking creepy that they CGI'd his face onto somebody else? So I think the way that they did that and dealt with that was right. I feel the movie works as a representation of what happens to people around you when someone you care about dies, dealing with loss and grief. I think it gets muddled a bit by the listicle that is Marvel, in that we have to hit so many things because we have a series here, a series there, a movie here that we have to set up. And I think if they had pared down some of that and stuck exactly to what I'm imagining was Ryan Coogler's original idea of making a movie about loss and grief rather than throwing in these extra characters, that it probably would have been a much shorter movie and much more cohesive film. I thought it was great. I was entertained by it more so than other Marvel movies, but not without fault.
Well put.
Well put. This has been a very mature episode, folks.
Boogers, poop, pee pee,
boogers,
caca,
poop, pee-pee.
fart.
Boner.
Yeah, boner.
Oh yeah.
It's okay, Disney. I learned it from you.
Yeah.
I learned it from you.
I learned it from you. Awesome. Well, that was a good discussion, John. I think we used our grad degrees to their full extent today.
Yeah.
It makes me not cry every single time I pay back the student loans. Anyway, John, where can they find you at on the internets?
Yep, all the typical old man stuff. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and by the time this episode is out, go check out my new episode. So many questions on Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh,
and
look forward to that one.
And right after that one, well, not right after because I'll need some time to make it. Will be my check-in on You Only Live Twice, where they made
Oh God,
James Bond into an Asian.
That movie is terrible. Like on so many levels.
The first line in the movie, I'm like, oh, maybe he's not so bad in this one. He goes, how come you Chinese girls taste different than other women? I'm like, oh my God, that's this first line in the movie.
This one doesn't have, no, Man with the Golden Gun has Knick Knack in it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that one's so bad. Oh man, wow. Well, check those videos out. You can find me at Brian Coddington. I also run the Psycho Show page. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Psycho Show. We are also on the TikToks. I know. TikTok. For all our Gen Z folks out there. You can find us at Cinema Psycho Show. As I mentioned, I think I mentioned this last episode, but we now have a Discord server, right? John, did you join the Discord server yet?
Discord, meet the Discord. No, I'm like scared and old.
You need to do it.
I will get on there and I'll.
You need to get on there. We have a couple people there, so yeah, come hang out with us. Talk about movies. Talk about these episodes, and maybe you really liked Eternals, and you don't understand why my daughter cried at it. Well, guess what? You can just come on to Discord and say, "Hey, Brian, what's the deal?" So check the description in the show notes here for our the Discord link, and
just be respectful.
Yeah, be respectful. Don't be a dick. Aside from that, you can always send us email at cinemapsychoshow, cinemapsychoshow.com, and be sure to follow us. Be sure to subscribe to us wherever you listen to audio, and we will see you next time.
All right. I'm gonna say what everybody else is too afraid to say, but thinking, how come there's no White Panther?
Oh, great.